receptive, and we're not really, how to say, we're not giving it the honor of seeing it as something really big. It's only when it happens close by, then we start to understand how serious it is. It doesn't have to be so serious. It's just that we make it so serious. Yeah. So then, again, this question that I asked you at the end of the last meditation: what do you think happens at the time of death? I think is very important, so that you're not kind of taken by surprise. Yeah, so at least you know where to put your mind and what to do. And I remember one of the Tibetan Lamas, he was giving courses to the Westerners, and he said, yeah, I know you Westerners, you don't believe in rebirth. So when there's rebirth, it's not that this life finishes and then we start new, right? It's just a continuity, the same as what we have accumulated in terms of habits, tendencies, views, opinions, all this. That's how it influences our life. So this is also what we're going to take with us. So he said, well, if you do believe in rebirth, then at least, you prepare for your next life also. And you lead a life that is meaningful, meaning not harming anybody and trying to be as helpful as possible. And then he said, and if there is no rebirth, well, no problem, because you had a meaningful life. And he said, but if you do not believe in rebirth, and you do whatever comes into your mind, as we see now, I mean, we can all see it. Aggression in people's minds has become like, it's sad, yeah, and people who enjoy it, people who make a whole kind of, how to say, like philosophy out of it or something like that. People who feel they're proud and I am somebody because I'm aggressive, and this is very dangerous. So if you're like this and you do whatever comes to your mind, and because of the confusion you think it's a good thing what you're doing, but again, they're doing that because of conditions and how they grew up and where they belong, and they want to belong somewhere, and they want to be somebody, and they want to be special like all of us, and then they are especially bad, and then that's it. So if you don't believe in rebirth and you do just whatever comes into your mind, then he said, well, if there is rebirth, then you will get a big surprise. So
at the moment of death, shit.
Yeah, you go, oh shit, it's not finished, So I think, whether there is rebirth or whether there's no rebirth, we will not know, okay? Some people remember, there are whole books, like there was this guy Stevenson, when I was younger, I think in the 90s, 80s, 90s, he made this research and he was trying to find people who could remember their past lives, like Westerners. In Asia, it's like, of course there is rebirth. The same way as we said, no, there's no rebirth, they say, of course there is rebirth. So you have to find out which view is most helpful for you to lead a happy life, because this is what it's all about. Even we talk about next life, you have to start now, to start to create the causes and our potential is to be happy. And when we are happy people, we're not creating so much damage. Yeah. So with all this violence and stuff, there's a very nice story about Vinnie Leonardo, which was a mafia kid in California, Berkeley, somewhere. Do you know him?
Personally, yes.
Oh, there you go. So maybe you should tell the story. Because
I just heard of him because there was a movie at the last Zurich Film Festival. I think that was about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just know the story. I don't know it from him, but I believe it's true, and it's really moving because he was a mafia kid, and in order to belong to the gang, you need to go to prison. So in order to go to prison, you need to be violent. So they were young, and with these gangs, they would go with their baseball bats and bash people up. And so one day, there was a old homeless person sitting there, and so they went, and then the moment he kind of went like this, and the person looked at him and he said, please help me, and he couldn't hit. He just couldn't hit him. And so he was, he said, okay, he's weak and he's old, let's go and try find something more challenging. But he went back to that person And he screamed at him and he said, "How dare you ask me to help you? Are you crazy? I was here to beat you up and now you're asking me to help you. Why did you ask me to help you?" And this homeless person said, "Because I have never seen so much kindness in somebody's eyes than in yours." I always have to cry when I tell the story. So that means that homeless person must have had a really, really pure mind in order to see behind all this aggression, in order to see the potential. So he pretty much stopped the whole thing, and he's working with street kids. Yeah, he's teaching them meditation and how to have a meaningful life. If you look at him, he's full of piercing and tattoos and so yeah. So if we can see that everybody's nature is goodness, then at least we try to bring it out instead of just going, "Oh, they're bad by nature." Nobody is bad by nature. Now again, I don't know if this is true or not, but I know that it helps me to believe that everybody has the potential to be good, because then at least I'm looking for it. But it doesn't mean that we let people do whatever they want to do. If we can stop somebody from being violent, that's fine. But it's very difficult to change our own mind from being self-concerned and violent and all this. Have you noticed how difficult it is? And then we want to go around and change other people's minds. We can't even change our own mind. So it's a big kind of, it's a bit too arrogant to think that we can help somebody to be non-violent. We can't even help ourselves. But this is where we start. Yeah, so then there's a lot of things we can do with violent people. I think what they desperately need is to be same way, to be seen, to be loved, to be appreciated, to be respected, and so they're even more distorted than we are. Yeah, so and it comes from conditions, but that can change. But at the moment, it's serious. Yeah, the way like small scale, big scale. So all we can do is not to contribute to it by being angry at the people who are angry, but also to protect ourselves. That's fine, because it's not good for them if they harm you. Okay. So now we come down to the more serious matters. It's like we will do a reflection on death is certain and the time of death is uncertain. We all think we know that, isn't it? Well, if I go around with a microphone and ask people, "Do you know that everybody dies?" They would think they're crazy and say, "Yes, of course, everybody dies." But then how is it that when we hear that somebody has died, that our reaction is usually what?
Oh my God.
Or, "Oh no." Kind of
Congratulations.
Huh?
Congratulations, end of suffering.
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah. So we refuse to believe it first. Like we're surprised, isn't it? So we're surprised, and that means we think we know, but we only know in the head. We don't know it here. And knowing it here, by the way, that everybody has to die at one point, and it's normal for people to die. It's a natural law. It seems that even though it's reality, it's a natural law. If you would voice that to somebody who says, "Oh, this person has died," you say, "Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, everybody has to die." People would think we're heartless. Yeah, sometimes really being with reality, facts of life, where it's not considered as being something that is good. Yeah. Like also yesterday we were talking with somebody who was before working in old people's home, and there was also some kind of flu, and then so everybody said, "Oh, we have to give him injections and all this." And then the doctor who came, he said, "Well, but at one point they have to die of something. Like, this is it. So one point, nobody wants to get old. We're all complaining that, people live their old age with a lot of, I don't know, either not being conscious anymore, or being angry, or being disappointed, or being like that, and then we don't want to let them go. Also, it's like, yeah, so we are full of contradictions a little bit in this society. Okay, so if that's okay for you, then we'll try to make our minds familiar with death is certain and the time of death is uncertain. So you might remember, for those who were here for the last weekends, it's called the 9-point death meditation, because you have 3 kind of main points. Death is certain. And then you have, it's not enough just to say death is certain. The same way as it's not enough before just to say your life is good. That doesn't change anything. It starts to change when we start to understand it could be different. So you see, that's another thing. When you are not so well, or when life gets tough, instead of letting the mind go where it says, oh, but it should be so much better, you go like, oh, but it could be so much worse. Because then again, you put it into perspective. Yeah. And then what happens to you, because it could be worse, it's not so bad anymore. Yeah. So like that. So we need to give the mind reasons why death is certain, and then also then is a conclusion at the end of each point, and then also reasons why the time of death is uncertain. Okay. For those who haven't been here last, when we did that 2 days of more teaching than meditation, Talia can send you the info, I think.
We already did.
You already did. Oof.
No,
So
that was not that was different. That was info for this class.
No, if you look at the attachment.
from last time, you received it last time.
Last time. But what I received yesterday was the
But that's
document for today.
You won't be.
No, if you look at the attachment, the documents that's being attached is the same as last time.
Yeah, it's the same as last time. This is just for the people who were not here last time. You know, when you have all these details and lists and stuff.
Okay.
Because some people were not here
So
last
you
time.
received it last time already, it's again.
Okay.
It's the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Okay, so then we settle down again. Comfortably with a straight back, full of self-confidence. Also sometimes, to really go inside and again into your heart. And to really think, I'm a good person. Without any reasons, just like that. Not just you, everybody.
She's doubting me all the time.
Huh?
She's doubting me. I say,
No. You have to tell yourself.
Also,
Telling other people is no point. We don't believe it. You have to believe it.
no, she tells me I'm not a good person. That's my girlfriend.
Yeah. So show her your goodness, and then she will start to see you as a good person.
Evidence.
Okay, so at the basis, not try to see what this thought does to you when you think that. Not with all the things you didn't do well and you can't do and all the worries, and just, I'm a good person. Close your eyes, connect with your heart. Exactly. Take a few deep breaths and open up. We are very good people. Imagine coming on a day like this, meditating on death. How many people would do that voluntarily? Giving money. Oh my gosh, crazy. How can you not believe that you're a good person? Making your life really meaningful by doing these things. How wonderful is that? What more wonderful do you want to have? Trying to develop a good heart. To be connected, to be considered about others. Trying to be helpful. We're not Buddha, we're not God. We're doing our best. It's good enough. So let go of all the ifs and buts. I'm a good person. And relax into that fact, because then we can live that goodness. We're not so concerned all the time what other people think of us, how they see us and all that. We have to be okay with ourselves. Then it's easier to live with us also. And Again, just notice what happens in your body when you think like this. Don't manipulate anything, just let it happen. Just relax, it's fine, it's okay. So before we start with this quite difficult topic, it is really good to see that thinking about death has advantages and not thinking about death has disadvantages. So probably one of the biggest disadvantages is that we don't think that one point we have to leave this body and we have to leave this earth, that we will die with regret and being very restless, with fear, not having found a place where to put the mind, not having found what is called a refuge. And then when we look, we make so many plans in our life, even though we know that we're not so sure whether these plans will be fulfilled. And most probably the only one thing that we can be sure of is that we will die. But we hardly ever count it amongst our plans. It's only when death seems to be like inevitable, either through a fatal sickness or because the body really gets into decline, maybe then we start to think about how do I want to die. But then it might be too late and you don't have the mental strength anymore. So just to familiarize in a very simple way with the thing, one day I will die, and that is certain. One day the world without me. What happens? You don't have to panic, you don't have to freak out. Just observe. We're not manipulating anything, we're just observing. That's the first point, is absolute certainty of death. First reason why, because everybody who has been born had to die. Even the Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, other realized beings. The rich, the poor, the beautiful, the ones not so good looking, the well instructed or the well studied ones, the very famous ones, the unfamous ones. I know it seems a bit kind of childish to think like that or ridiculous, but we have to introduce our mind to that fact. And it doesn't mean we become cold and blasé when somebody dies. We'll still be sad that they have gone, but it will not destroy us. And it might help us to lead the life that we want to live. Another of these points is why death is absolutely certain, because there's no place where you can hide from it. Because we carry it with us. It is inbuilt in this body, impermanence, the decline, either through time or through sickness or through accident. So even you go up to the highest mountain, into the deepest cave, even down into the ocean or out into outer space, death can find you anywhere. We have so much trust in our medical system, isn't it? So when we hear that somebody is sick, fatal sickness, but then there's always this thought, but go and get a second opinion. But something must be possible to do about this. But there's not. Moment will come, even though you have access to all the doctors, all the professors, all the machines. At one point they will not be able to help you anymore. Or let's say you're very powerful. You have many, many armies that stand at your command. Also, they cannot protect you. Well, let's say you are a very well-known person, liked and loved by many beings, and all the spiritual leaders and all the spiritual practitioners of all the religions make prayers for you. At one point, it will not help anymore, and you will have to die. Another point is that time is constantly decreasing. Every step we make and every breath we take, it brings us closer to the moment of death. There's nothing we can add onto this lifespan, and we cannot hold this process. Even while you're sleeping, even while you are unconscious, time is constantly running out. Are we really aware of that? One day less is one day less. If you were to fall from an aeroplane without a parachute, you would be fully aware of death approaching. Now, our situation is not that much different. The only difference is we're not aware of it. Now again, this is not to make you depressed or afraid. We still have time. It's just to make us aware that the moment will come. So how do I want to spend my life now until the moment I'm dying? What will be meaningful? What will be beneficial? So here we can make certain resolutions, decisions. I will put more time into developing the mind, a good heart. I will sort out the conflict I have with others. I will try to develop certain mind states that already now, when I see that I'm depressed, anxious, frightened, that I learn and train these antidotes so I can apply them at the time of death, very well knowing that even that might not work, but just prepare for the emergency. If you think in terms from like 100 years from now, most probably none of us sitting here in this room, none of all the people who are living right now will be alive anymore. In 300, 400, 500 years we will be totally forgotten. Not even a grave or a tombstone remaining with a name on it. So try to get a feeling for this absolute certainty of death. And then how do I want to spend the rest of my life in this body? What are my priorities? What will be important? If you start to feel a little bit uneasy or tired or confused, then try to relax into that. Try to allow that feeling, but give it space, open up, because this is the best way to practice. To remain calm and open. To be accepting when it's not the way you wanted it to be. To surrender, to stop fighting, stop putting up resistance. Okay, so the second of these three main points that we think about is that even though death is absolutely certain, the time of death is totally uncertain. And this is something that we're even less familiar with, because we all think, okay, one dies when one is old, and not before. So the first thing we think about is that one can die any moment. So we're not looking at percentage, we're looking at reality. Sometimes beings die even though before they're born, they die in the womb. You must have heard these stories. I know a few mothers who had to give birth to a dead baby. And it's seen as something totally unnatural. It is not common, but it's not unnatural. Then one can also die as a baby. One can die as a child, as a teenager in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. We don't have fixed lifespans. Like your Visa card, there it has an expiry date, so we can prepare for it. We had a new one. We know when it expires. So if we'd all be certain that we will live until we're 80, then we can have fun while we are young and start to prepare for death when we go towards 60 or something like that. But we don't know. Yet we're absolutely certain that tonight we will go home, we'll go to sleep, tomorrow we'll wake up, we go to work, or do other things that we decided to do. This is so unrealistic, but we're so certain that we're definitely not going to die tonight, nor tomorrow. Try to find this attitude that thinks, I'm not going to die today. And then just put behind it, why not? And see what happens. Another reason why we can die any moment is because we're constantly surrounded by things that are dangerous that can cause our death. So we all have heard about the coronavirus, but somehow we're convinced that it only happens to others, isn't it? We're afraid of it, yes. But again, there's this strange kind of attitude. If I don't think I get it, I will not get it. Again, the question, why not? If we go on a train, travel in a car, go on an aeroplane, we're totally convinced that we will arrive where we wanted to go. Although we hear about accidents, but it only happens to others. I mean, when we look at our reactions, we're even kind of surprised that my train is late. There's a short moment of annoyance, even though we're not in a hurry. We desperately try to find some security that we can rely on things. It's total illusion. So many conditions have to come together for things to work. It needs so little for them to fall apart. Then even things that are there to protect us can cause death, like houses can burn or collapse, and we can be inside. Food that sustains the body can be kind of rotten or poisoned. So I guess most of you don't eat meat or fish, or seafood, so you have much less chance that this will happen. And medicine that's been taken in the wrong way can also lead to death. Then the third reason there is that our bodies are very fragile. So in case you're healthy now, again, try to experience or feel, how do you feel about your body? When you're healthy, you have a feeling of it's strong and healthy. As if nothing can happen to it. Invincible. So maybe try to remember last time you were sick. How did you feel? All of a sudden, very weak, very miserable. Goes very quickly. Sometimes a small headache is enough. Then we start to see how vulnerable the body is. And in order for the body to be destroyed or for life to be destroyed, it doesn't really need a car to hit you or a train. It can be a small knife that is put into the body at the right place. Or it can be as right now. Something can cause an infection, like a thorn, and it doesn't heal properly, or you go to the hospital and then you have all these bacteria that are kind of resistant. Or something as small as a virus we can't even see with our own eyes enters the body, causes death. So when we start to understand these points, then maybe we make a decision that not only I want to make my life meaningful, but I want to start with this right now, because I don't know how much time I have left. So then again, these reflections, they are not to make you feel miserable, sad, or frightened. It's actually there so that we enjoy life and see that since it's not going to last, I don't want to waste my life by being kind of selfish, miserable, lost in thought, and so on. It's up to you. It's your life. How do you want to spend it? Okay, so again we have 15 minutes break. And if you can spend it in silence, that would be great. Okay, everybody still okay? Still alive? Very much so.
Even more so.
Huh? Even more so. This is what it's for. This is the thing. Because I know at the beginning it seems a bit ridiculous to think about all these things, because that's what we usually try to avoid. If you go to a party and you start talking about these things, you know, I don't think they will invite you again. But you'll be surprised. I mean, if it's official, that whatever occasion it is that the topic will be death, it is people kind of appreciate somehow, because this is also one thing that really connects us, because we will have to die. You know, like with karma and rebirth and all this, then they go, oh, I don't believe in it. Yeah, fine, but death, nobody can say I don't believe in it. I have another opinion. It's like, it's not possible, so it's quite good. And it's quite a relief also to be able to talk about it, especially if you are with somebody who's dying, and or if you know that you are going towards your end as well. And I don't know if you have known people who, you know, when the doctor says, sorry, can't help you anymore, so many months to live at the most. There's different ways to accept it. If you accept it, then your life becomes actually full of quality. And if you don't accept it, your life becomes really even more miserable than it was before. So, and sometimes people, they kill themselves when they have the news, because they cannot live with the idea that they will die. This is quite amazing also to see. But it can be very inspiring, because there's a couple that I know, and she was diagnosed with ALS. And both of them, ALS is when the muscles kind of, you know, it's not multiple sclerosis, which is nerves, because that is a bit the same, but it's muscles. And you choke to death, and you can't breathe anymore, and the speech goes, and all of a sudden the whole body goes like this. And both of them are practitioners, and they accepted it really well. She died maybe 3 weeks ago, and but the way she died was, the way she left this, like spent these 2 years from, probably it's about 2 years, from the diagnosis to her death, it was a preparation for death. What shall I do? What kind of practice? What can I still do now? And her husband he doesn't have to work anymore, so they're over sick, they're in their 60s. And he said this is the best time we had together, because they were so loving and so considerate about each other. She didn't take too much of his time and too much of his attention. He could give her whatever he wanted to give her, and she, you know, able to receive it. So it was very inspiring to see how they spent this last 2 years together. So it doesn't have to be, oh, life is finished now, when you know that it's only going to be not that much more time left. It can be totally the opposite, or it can become really bad. It all depends on you. And I think the more we think about these things, the more it becomes part of our life. I really think so. Yeah, when I see like people who practice this their whole life, like, then for them it's much more normal. Not just Buddhists, like also in India, for example, where death is not being shut away into a cupboard. Like I used to be. Have you been to Root Institute, Talia? Yeah, okay. So I was there when it started with the hospice, with the destitute home it was called. So then, you know, we were looking for beggars that had no family, that nobody would look after, and that were really in a bad state, either to kind of nurse them back to life, but most of the time it was for them to die in a clean and nice environment. So it's a bit strange to say, but the jeep went out every morning to look for these people, and then very often they came back without anybody, so we're quite disappointed. Because then, you know, the purpose of that place was not fulfilled somehow. But we did have, some. So there were two at the beginning, there's two wings there when you come in, and then there's two wings. Now the school is totally outside, but this was very small, the school kind of started with 8 children, and some were this big and some were that high, same class. Kids who had never been to school, that was the first class. So when somebody then died of these beggars, then they were put on a stretcher covered with a very nice kitschy cloth. Of course, it's India, with gold and very bright colors and like these flowers. And then they were just lying there, and the kids would come to school and pass through them, and they knew somebody had died, and it was okay. Can you imagine a Swiss school where a dead corpse is lying there when people have to pass it? But they were a bit kind of, shy, and they were quiet when they saw it, but it was okay for them. Yeah. And when there's a funeral, also they are being carried on a stretcher, you can see that there's a dead corpse lying on it. It's not a beautiful wooden box, where you can't see what's inside. So it's like we try to put it away and make it more beautiful. Also, when my mom died, my mom never wore lipstick. So when she was in her coffin, and then her best friend came, and she was, also 90 or something like that, and she looked at her and she was shocked, and she said, "What have they done to you?" Because she was wearing lipstick in her coffin. Somebody who never wore lipstick her whole life somehow is like, why? Why are we making things more beautiful than they are? Because I think we have a kind of strange relationship to this fact that we're dieable, we're perishable, we're dieable, huh? Yeah, that's how it is. So the next meditation that we will do, this is a very important one, because it's for you to look now, what will help me at the time of death. So the thing is, you have to go alone. There is no reception when you go. There's no Google, there's no Wikipedia, there's no WhatsApp, there's no Facebook, there's no nothing. So now is the time to see, when I'm not well, the strategies. Where does my mind go? Can it go there when I'm dying? Is that a safe refuge? So we're talking about refuge, yeah? And so we have many things that we're taking refuge in, and they work as long as we're still alive. One of them is possessions. We go out, buy something, we go out, nice meal, or, if that doesn't work, then drugs and alcohol or whatever. And we look at our things that are very beautiful. It can be Buddhist statues, can be a diamond ring, it doesn't matter what it is. And it makes us feel secure. This is mine. Yeah, my brother died at 48 also. Very strange now seeing it. It's a very strange way he behaved, because he knew he was dying, because he had liver cancer also. But he bought a new car and made his holiday house bigger than it was. So that was the thing, I have my car and my house. I am not going to die. And until the last moment, nobody was allowed to speak about death. Can you imagine? He was totally denying what was happening. The last day he dragged himself out of bed and he started to turn the furniture around in the living room. That was very painful. That was very painful for his children and for his wife especially, because there was no proper, okay, what do we do now? Nobody was, he had done everything, insurances, bills, everything. He didn't know anything. So on top of it, she lost her husband, which was quite young. And she didn't know how to run the family, like administration and stuff. And then, of course, what comes at these moments? Anger. And she didn't allow herself to feel it. So it was very, very complicated. Whereas if I see this couple there when she has ALS and they know that she's going, and they prepare, like preparing for a trip. So it's sad, of course, if she goes. But at least the time spent before she has to go is at least this quality time. So it's all up to us how we do it. And we have to be prepared what is lying ahead of us. Yeah, because all the things that we rely on now for our happiness collapse. So we have to learn to live alone. We have to learn to look after ourselves alone. And this again, meditation, basic awareness, knowing how to open up, knowing how to develop positive states of mind. That's the best. And this you always have with you. Don't need reception, don't need aku, don't need anything. It's always there. Good heart is, I think, good guarantee. Yeah. So we'll look at it, and then I'll let you. So what one meditates upon or one thinks about is what does not help. You know, the things that we take refuge in now while we are still alive. So again, it's a bit painful because at one point we have to be aware that we're going to lose them. On the other hand, sometimes it helps so that we're not amassing too many things. You know, if you want to buy something and you don't really need it, and you don't really have that much money, I don't know how you are financially. But in general, everybody thinks that they don't have enough money, no matter how much money they have. It's another, you know, we never have enough money, you know, it's like, we can say, I have enough, but we definitely don't say, no, I have enough, I don't want it if you win the lottery or something. You wouldn't say that. That's another thing we never have enough of. So to see that if you want to buy something but you don't have maybe that much money, then you stand there and you look at the thing and you ask yourself, okay, if I die, what will happen to this thing? Will it be useful for somebody to sell or to use? Okay, then I go and buy it. If it's going to be thrown away, most of the things are being thrown away when you empty somebody's house. How many of you have emptied somebody's house? Okay. How much did you keep? How much went?
My parents' house, 2 places. Yeah, most stuff's gone.
Yeah, right.
Well, but we donate them.
Yeah, and it's very difficult, isn't it? Because you know how,
it's not
how
done
emotionally it is very difficult, because I know that this was my mom's favorite cup, but I really don't like it. Yeah, so then I keep it, and I suffer keeping the cup because it was my mom's favorite cup, because I can't. I think it's kind of a breach of loyalty if I give it away to somebody else. Isn't it? It's so difficult. So you can make it really easy for people when you put in your testament, whatever can be sold, sell it. Whatever can be, you don't want, throw. It's fine.
Do it yourself before it happens.
That's even better. My dad, before he died, he gave everything away in his apartment. He went to hospital, he died next day. Yeah, and he was not a spiritual practitioner. But he had enough of life. He was sure that he wanted to go because the body was too difficult to keep. He had achieved what he wanted to achieve, couldn't achieve more. He was an achiever, so he couldn't achieve anymore. And he had water in his lungs, and that was it. He called the taxi and went to hospital Saturday. Sunday morning he didn't wake up. So you see, again, it's like this claim only spiritual practitioners can die peacefully. No. Both my parents proved that this is not really true, because Dad earned the money, so he is happy with earning it. He couldn't spend it because he was born poor. My mom also was born poor, but she spent it. so both of them was the perfect couple, you know. Both of them had achieved what they wanted. Dad wanted to earn the money. Mom wanted to have a good life. She had it. And both of them said, okay. Because Mom spent it all before she died. So then that was it. So this is why it's so important that you know what for you is important in life. That you can go at the time of day, you can say, okay, I done what I could. Because my dad was very clear the way he talked. He said, I can't go any higher. And I can't achieve anything anymore, so I'm going. So I was in India when it happened, but like 2 months before he died, I knew I wouldn't see him anymore, because that's what he said. Because he said at one point, he said, I really want to die. So I said, yeah, it's fine. Then he looked at me and said, but I really mean it. I said, yeah, me too. Yeah, right. It's not a comedy. It's like,
yeah, I know. But actually, there's a lot of people they know before they die, and they say, "I want to do this," or they buy that. Like, many people know them before they die.
Yeah, I think you can sometimes, still we don't really have control over death, but sometimes people can either wait if somebody comes or go before somebody comes, or it can be a little bit kind of, but not really 100% like that, but yeah. Some people do know. And I think it is this thing, letting go and making the step, being sure that that's it. Goodbye, I want to go. But I think what makes you be able to go with a peaceful mind is that when you can say, I achieved what I wanted to achieve. So you need to know now. Yeah. You need to know what is important for you. And then if you haven't done it yet, that you do it, or you let go. Yeah, also in a hospice, then sometimes you would ask people who you could see they were hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. That we asked them, well, are you afraid of dying or are you afraid of not living anymore? And most of them was of not living anymore, like as if they were still waiting for something. This kind of thought at the end of life, like, is that it? Was that all the struggle worthwhile, like running and struggling and stressful and trying to do and not achieving and this and that and then trying something else? And then now for what? Having to leave everything behind? Is that what this is all about, that we call life? Yeah, I think it's Jack Cornfield who said, like, the most important questions for him at the end of his life would be, have I lived well? Have I laughed well? Not how many things have I possessed or have I achieved. Yeah. So, and love we can always. Even if people hate us, you can still love them, but you get out of their way because it gets on their nerves when you're around. So for their protection, you remove yourself, but you can still have an open heart towards them. But for us, love is, it has to come also from that side. Then it becomes very shaky. But if you learn how to love people the way they are, then that's it, you're safe. And I think it was one quote, you don't have to change people, you just have to like them. Yeah, but no, we need to change them so that they are the way that I want to be. You can change somebody, it's your own mind. Okay, so we'll try to see this kind of thing. What will help at the time of death. Actually, how they start is quite cruel again, They start with what will not help at the time of death, so that we start to understand the things that we are looking for, kind of comfort and consolation now, they will not help at the time of death. They might help. Again, it's not that material possessions don't help. This is what I was trying to say with the example of my parents. My dad, because both of them came from quite poor families. Swiss standard, okay, not African standard. So my dad was happy that he had earned the money, and my mom was happy that she had the money, spent it. So, and both of them died very peacefully. So now for me, it's like, it's different. I wouldn't be happy. I don't think I'd be happy with having visited so many 5-star hotels, but she was. So who am I to say this is not right? The main thing is that both of them very consciously, they said, okay, I'm going. Very peacefully, without grasping. Dad 1 night in hospital, Mom 4 days. And before that, at home, kind of independent. Both of them 85, but 3 years different. So it's quite a while ago. So then 85 was still old. Now these days 85 is not so old anymore, is it? Like now you have to be old, you have to be above 90 or something. To be old. Yeah, you'll see how it is. Now I'm 70, and when I was 20, I thought, like, wow, 70 is like ancient. Now I am 70, and this is another illusion, that this I doesn't age in here. This is the problem. Yeah, I can see the body is 70. This is not, and the mind also, like poof. But somehow it's like, I definitely don't feel like 70 as I thought when I was 20 I would feel being 70. Yeah, Simon, maybe you're not that old yet, but
No,
but can you relate to that
I
also?
can relate to that.
Yeah. Okay, let's try. So again, just relax, settle straight back in a relaxed way. Also, if during the meditation you feel that you need to move or you're uncomfortable, that's fine, but then try to go back into posture. Because the posture with the straight back, if possible, it really opens up the energy channels, which then the mind becomes quite stable and clear. Also, when there is little pains in the body, try to just open up around the pain, not to tense up, because that again will be helpful when you're old and maybe also at the time of death, having learned now, how to deal with pain when we can't relieve it. So that's very helpful also. So whatever we usually think is bad, it always comes as an opportunity to practice acceptance. So it's great. You feel very good, very blissful, very open, that's also great. So just don't manipulate anything. Then again, connect with the body. Try to see if you have tensions. Scan through the body, so close your eyes to do that unless you're used to meditate with your eyes open, that's fine. So try to see where your points are, usually shoulders pulled up, face, small tensions, chest being narrow. So open up. Try to open up without moving, with the mind. Because the moment we are aware of tensions, those muscles, they release themselves. They open up, become soft. Try to feel comfortable in your body, no matter what's going on. Don't make a story out of it, don't judge, don't comment, don't push it away. It's not easy, but it will be very valuable already now. Because once the body is open and peaceful, the mind also will become open and peaceful. And peace will only come when we accept things as they are, because there's always something wrong anyway, so you can move as much as you want. Something else will bother you after a short while. And then also what is important to bring some joy into your reflection or meditation. Don't be so dead serious. Like you can accompany your breathing by just thinking, breathing in, it keeps me alive. Breathing out, it keeps me alive. or as we are approaching death with the fear, by breathing in, thinking I'm open to whatever wants to come. It's very helpful also. When you breathe out, you think whatever is good I want to share with others. But they also find moments of peace and happiness, humor, well-being. So whatever is helpful, then start to use that so that your mind is doing it automatically. So then we start to look, when we are not well, we start to look at our strategies. Maybe already today, as we were doing these reflections, you were making plans about this evening or tomorrow's Sunday, so day off. So when things get difficult or uncomfortable, where do your thoughts go? What are you planning? So again, it's not bad to look forward to something in the future. The problem is we're doing it all the time and then we miss the present. Because then it seems as if the present is not good enough. So don't judge yourself for doing that. Everybody's doing it. Happiness seems to be always round the next corner. But if you can't find it in the present, it's not round the next corner. Because then there's a next corner, and the next corner, and the next corner. Okay, so we start to look. The moment when we are not well, we try to find kind of well-being, happiness in material things. With what do you console yourself when you feel restless, uneasy, anxious, bored, confused? And it's true that all these things, they do provide a temporary relief of being frightened, confused, sad, depressed. But we become totally dependent on them because it's just temporary relief. So again, just look, in what way can all these material possessions that I have be of help to me at the time of death? They definitely don't prevent death. I cannot bribe death, say, I give you all my things. Death is taking them anyway, so. So the thought, if you look at all your things that you possess and that you enjoy, could be that it's nothing, could be that you're not attached to anything, which is very good, so don't worry. Just think that somebody will come and throw everything away. See them going to the garbage. How do you feel? We see a lot of things being thrown away every day, but when it's not my thing, even if it's very beautiful and very valuable, we don't care. But we do spend a lot of worries and a lot of time protecting these things, earning the money to buy them. Is it really worthwhile? So in order to work a bit with attachment, we can already think now, all these things, they're not really mine. If they were really mine, I could take them away with me. I have to leave them behind. But you can still enjoy them by thinking that you have them on loan for you to be enjoyed while you're still alive. But then you have to give them back. Very often we think that we are not attached to these things. But maybe remember a moment when somebody stole something from you, or imagine them being stolen. There's a lot of suffering, even though we don't need the object necessarily. So we react already like this when something is gone that I call mine. Well, death is the ultimate thief. It takes everything away. So whatever you enjoy as material objects, possessions, just think they're not really mine. I'm just using them for the moment. This is how you can lessen your attachment to them. And also understanding that the good feeling doesn't come from the object. It comes from the state of your mind. So that one is the easiest part. Now comes more difficult, because what we also have to leave behind is friends and family. And that really hurts. And we have to be prepared for this moment already now. And it becomes especially difficult if we have created negativities with them, if there's feelings of aversion, hate, resentment. Usually when there's knots with families or friends, kind of we think, oh, I wait until my deathbed and everybody will forgive me. I will ask for forgiveness. Everything will be okay. Well, that's a big illusion. as much as possible. Sort these things out now. So then leaving them behind will not be so difficult. If the relationship was very good, we can just thank them for having come this stretch of path, having done this stretch of path with us, having accompanied us for a certain moment. If our time spent together was not very good, it's important to be able to forgive. For example, we could think, actually we're both the same. We both want happiness. We both don't want to suffer, and we both don't know how to do this. And we don't have, for the forgiving, we don't have to wait until we die or until they die. We can just, first it's just simple words and nothing happens in the heart. But just saying, I forgive you for whatever you have done, willingly or unwillingly, out of confusion, out of not knowing what brings happiness and what brings suffering. I forgive you. May you be happy. May you be well. That's all we can do, open up our hearts. But no matter how we love them or how they love us, we will have to leave them behind. And this is the most difficult part. So being able to say thank you and wish them well will make it maybe a little bit less difficult. So if you think now of these loved ones and just say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to like you, to love you. Thanking them also for accepting us the way we are. And see what it does to your mind, to the sensations in your body. So if we already feel sad when we have to go somewhere and we have to leave them for a certain amount of time, but we're certain that we will meet them again, already now that hurts. Can you imagine at the time of death? When you know that this is it. This is the ultimate goodbye. I know it's painful, but we have to be prepared for that. Because then we don't waste our time by feeling angry, resentful, judging. So another thing we have to leave behind is this body, and this is what we're not aware of because we're constantly together with this body. It has become a part of me. And we don't feel the attachment to it. We have kind of spent so much time worrying over it, keeping it healthy, clean, comfortable, entertained, good looking, fit. And at the time of death it says, okay, that's it, goodbye. I'm tired. Get out of here. It cannot support the mind anymore. It loses its life force. So it can not only not prevent our death or help at the time of death, it actually causes death. So death is not a real finishing because the mind continues. But the body, which we identify so much with, we have to leave it behind. So if you feel uncomfortable now, that would be actually quite a good thing. Because now is the occasion and the time where you can look, what will help me at the time of death? Something that you have access to. Something that has nothing to do with the body, nor friends and family, unless it is, I have loved them really well. That is different. But not something that you kind of are depending of receiving from friends and family. And something that has nothing to do with possessions. You have to go alone. Where's your refuge that you can trust? So first you have to see what's going on in your mind now. You have to recognize that. If it's being open, trustful, full of confidence, curious what comes next, everything is fine. If it's full of love, compassion, or the wisdom that there's no I that is dying here. It's just the mind that continues, going to another adventure. That is also fine. So try to kind of develop or bring up such a mind state. Love for all beings, the ones that you had contact with, the ones you didn't have contact with. May all beings be happy and comfortable. Or taking refuge in your positive actions. Or just the fact, I am a good person. or asking for help from a transcendental source. Visualizing the Buddha, your master. Connecting with that energy. Try it out, because now is the time for you to find what will help at the time of death. Or if you think that you totally messed up your life, just let go of that. It's finished. And having a thought, okay, next time I'll try better. Maybe that helps. I don't know, try it out. Going forward instead of being stuck in the past. Next time I'll try better. Or connecting with reality. I am not the only one who is dying. There's so many other beings who are dying at the same time here. If I look at the universe, same time as me, and the same process, being frightened, being confused. May they all have stable minds. May they all have a good refuge to die full of confidence, without fear, without confusion. What does that thought do to you? And then also, if you are very familiar with Buddhist teachings, to understand only nirvana is peace. Worldly pleasures are never giving me what I really want, lasting happiness. Or the thought of, doesn't really matter where I will be reborn. May I be reborn in a place where I can continue with this path, whatever path it is, be it Buddhist or another path, to continue to develop my mind and to be able to be of benefit to others. Okay. So it's really good I gave you quite a few thoughts here. So don't kind of put all of them in your mind and in your heart. Find the one that really works. Yeah. So it's very individual. The main thing is that it works. The main thing is that you open up and you kind of almost with a curiosity. And then if somebody in your death process starts to cough, No, wait. Instead of going, oh, I was so peaceful, I just found the right thought, and now she's destroying it, then let go, because it might not be quiet around you when you die, especially if you die in a hospital and there's an emergency, and I know what, there's lights, there's noise, there's yeah, or in an ambulance, there's da-do, so you say, hey, be quiet, I need to meditate. Well, yeah, I mean, be realistic. You have to learn to do these things with a lot of noise going on around you, because otherwise all your training, always very quiet, always very comfortable, always the right things, the right smell, the right music, the right candle, the right Buddha statue. What are you going to do if they're not there? So this is what we do. We become self-reliant. This is why every moment you have now, not everyone, I don't want to be so strict, but some moments that you have now, that when you don't feel well, look, where is the mind going? And just ask yourself, is that a reliable refuge at the time of death? Will I have access to that at the time of death? Love, open heart. It's always there. You would just have to go there. It's such a good refuge. Then the Buddha, the Dalai Lama, my master, the people who taught you how to meditate. Have you ever done that? We're so bloody proud and arrogant. We don't like to ask for help. But help is there all the time. Those are Buddhas, if you study what a Buddha is, a Buddha's mind is filled with love and compassion and wisdom for all sentient beings 24 hours a day, omnipresent. They're always here. But now we need to do it alone. You'll be surprised if in tight moments, what happens when you start to really take refuge in something that your mind trusts. Okay, this is the thing. You need to have a connection with that object. And the connection, you make it now through your practice. Every time you practice, like when I practice Lojong, and I see that, wow, man, this works. Mind training where you decrease your ego and you let the other one go first, even though he's a total asshole. He's a total pain in the neck. And then you see that, wow, he can't make me upset anymore, and you feel this opening. You go, this really works. And then the next, thank you for giving me these methods. Not, well, I have figured it out, which we very often do, isn't it? I do. But then to also this is why we have pictures. Have a picture of your master or of the Buddha or like this. Then, the mind is like going, not like now, it's becoming very weak. But I think pictures or shapes, it still recognizes. So even when you are dement, by the way, or songs also, there's these very nice stories when people are totally dement, no way to penetrate to them, but then somebody started singing nursery rhymes or something, and all of a sudden something opened. But you need to find this now and train it now, something that works. But then, of course, if you have a master, you never follow the advice, then that's... Yeah, I'm not joking, because then we kind of put it aside and we don't, instead of just confessing, saying, look, I know you told me to do this and this and this, I didn't. Usually they burst out laughing. And for us, it's such a relief when we can say, oh, I didn't really follow that advice. They're so full of compassion. Yeah. But when we carry it with us and we try to hide and then we fake as if we're like fantastic practitioner, it doesn't help. It doesn't make us a fantastic practitioner. Yeah. Much better to be able to say, oh, I'm really mediocre. Okay, This is what you learn in Lojong, to be happily mediocre. It's okay. What is more important, to be top and be stressed and unhappy, or mediocre and be happy? It's important also to bring that into your practice, that you're not kind of striving just to be the best. You go for that, fine, it's okay. Learn to be a happy loser. That's difficult. Even if you want to achieve something, well, I tell you what, learn to be a happy loser. Then you're okay. Then you're protected. How did it go? Did it go okay? This whole thing now, was it very difficult?
It's really good.
Huh? It's difficult. Yeah. It's painful. And we're not losing the things yet. So you can see, just thinking about it is painful. Can you imagine how it is when it's really the moment? Yeah. So this is why we train again and again and again and again. That we're not putting too many efforts into these things. And especially that we sort out the problems that we have. And I'm talking here about family and friends. Yeah, because what I see when I'm with dying people, what makes them restless and unpeaceful is not the things they have not done, but the things that they have done that are, sometimes they're very small. When they finally are able to say, it's very small, but it becomes very heavy at the moment of death. Sometimes it's, something as trivial as a lie. When I see how guilty they feel and how bad they feel, I'm in my head, I already think that there's a confession coming of that they killed somebody or something like that. And then it's, I told a lie to which university I went. It's a thing that really happened. This is why I'm saying it. And then if you're there with the dying person, you can say, that's okay. Imagine you would have killed somebody. Then, it's true. All of us could have killed somebody. A car, telephone, or something falls down and you try to get it and a child comes. Can you imagine the rest of your life? You see, the problem with us is that we are not happy with what we have not done. It's not good enough. We're not happy about not having harmed anybody in a big way. We need to have done good things to feel good about ourselves. If you don't have power and you're a total nobody, you have very little chance to do big harm. So it's good to be a nobody and not have power. It's okay. Yeah, instead of getting lost in these fantasies, what we should do, or what we should do is still okay because you can still do, but what we should have done is like, that's it. Okay, guys, so next meditation we're going to die. So we're going to do the death absorptions. I'll guide you through it. Until now, everybody has come back. So try not to go too deep also, yeah. Because I don't know how to bring you back. Not worried. I'm not worried. So it's like I'm telling the people so not to go too far and to go, I wonder what's there on the other side. So we just go until the mind leaves the body, but we're not leaving the body, okay? So that you become familiar with the process, because many people describe it. And many people describe it and they freak out because it's like so unfamiliar. All of a sudden, you feel like falling, but you're sitting on a bed or lying on a bed. All of a sudden you kind of hear strange things or have strange visions. And so everything that we think is really the way it is, shifts. Reality totally shifts. Also, I disappears all of a sudden, and we don't know who we are. Maybe you remember, because that happens to many people, when you, after about an hour, you went to sleep, and you have a feeling of falling into a bottomless pit. Have you experienced that?
Yeah.
Is it very inspiring? Is it very frightening? Because you don't know who you are. You have the experience. So as long as it's just the experience, it's fine, because you go with the experience and you enjoy. The moment the I comes in, what's going on, then it's the separation again from experience and I, yeah. But you don't know who you are at that moment, because you've been sleeping, and so the brain is kind of shut off a little bit. And the subtle mind has come up. And that's so confusing when we don't know who we are. Then the mind grasps, who am I? It looks for something that it can latch onto, and that creates rebirth, by the way. This kind of, I want to exist, I want to be somebody. Yeah, not so specific in these words, but this desire for existence. Sometimes we have desire for non-existence when we want to kind of ground open up and we disappear when we make big mistakes or something. Yeah. So we have both desires, but the one for existence is very, very strong, and that keeps us in samsara, especially then, to like samsaric pleasures. It's okay to have pleasures, don't forget that, but to think that the happy feeling comes from the object is wrong. It comes from your attitude towards that object, your opinion about this object, not from the object. But it looks as if it comes from the object, doesn't it? The contact with this object makes me happy, but it's not like that. It's positive karma ripening, which we'll do next time, I think. Yeah? We'll talk about how karma works. Try to explain. Okay, so we do another 10 minutes break, is okay? Then we do half an hour dying, another short break.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's good actually. It's good if it's not too long, because it's good if you're comfortable. So you can really go with these visions and stuff. And letting go of these 5 contaminated aggregates, opinions, views, everything just goes. So it's not bad. It's like, this one is quite, the one we did before is very painful. The one who comes now is very peaceful and very nice. People in general like, unless there's an immediate threat of dying, because I was at Tushita 7 years, and 1 year we had forest fires very close. You would hear them, you would smell them. Wow. So then when we did this, usually when we do this that we are doing now, that was coming, people say, wow, that was so nice, can I have a recording, I want to do it again, blah, blah, blah. Then everybody said, oh, I need to talk to you, I'm so frightened. I said, yeah, me also, don't worry. Because I was also frightened, it's like you're surrounded by forest and it burns. So it's like, and it's not like helicopters and stuff, it's like nothing. Not even water. There's no water to spray on the fire. But it stopped just above the meditators' huts. Wow. Yeah. I don't know what they did, but that's where it stopped, without water. You could see the line. Above was all black, and just above their huts on the hill behind Tushita. But the fire was, you could smell it and hear it. Yeah. I spent many sleepless nights at that time, until somebody said, because I said, look, I'm totally useless. I can't do anything anymore. I'm just panicking. I'm just frightening. Somebody said, where's your refuge? I thought, yeah, shit, where's my refuge? And I started taking refuge. Sangye Chodan, or, like I take refuge and visualizing the Buddha and seeing the light coming, and I started coming down. We forget. I forgot. I needed somebody from outside to say, where's your refuge? And it helps if you have a good connection with that refuge. So it's really worthwhile to try to find, where's my refuge? And it can be your good heart, by the way. It doesn't have to be something external. But because I don't trust my good heart so much, so this is why an external refuge, my master, the Buddha, His Holiness, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that's why those refuges work better. Because I know that I need them. I know I need them to show me this path. I know I need them to inspire me. Without them, with only books, I would never be where I am. Also without the Sangha, without the people around me. So I was very glad that he said, in a very cruel way, not instead of holding me and saying everything is okay. He said, where's your refuge? But it really helped. So, yeah. Where's your refuge?
Swiss embassy.
Huh?
The Swiss embassy.
The Swiss embassy. I tell you, they're really useless. If you're an Israeli citizen, you can count on your embassy. Or maybe also other countries. I don't know how it is, United States or something like that. But the Israelis are the best. They come and get you. Whereas the Swiss, you get a letter
Which is also
before it happens. There was like once we had the plague in India, and once we had these forest fires, these fires everywhere. They send you a thing saying, we can't come and get you, so you're responsible for yourself. That's what they did in India.
What about the Riga?
I don't think they would fly to Dharamsala. If you're not injured.
I've heard they fly like to the most.
Yeah, but only if you're already injured.
What's the Riga?
Riga is
Riga's
like this, the
Insurance.
rescue.
Insurance, they get you with the helicopter wherever you are.
Yeah, but if you're not injured, they're not coming to get you. They can only come when you're injured and sick. So, but I tell you, Swiss embassy is...
Okay, I also have a German passport. So
Okay,
maybe
so
it's
try
not-
those. Also, when I was in Delhi, we had one guy who turned up 3 times, and every time he went, he was psychotic, and every time he went, so I went twice. I went down with him to Delhi. He was German, so of course I turned up like this. We don't know with somebody. He was in the hospital, but I had to go to the embassy to kind of explain what had happened, so that they would arrange his flight home. So. At one point, she said, "Oh, I have so much to do, and anyway, here I have two cases where they have died, and we have to bring them home." So I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I didn't kill him before I came." It was like, it's easier when they're dead in a way. It's just more paperwork, but they're easier to handle than somebody who runs away, because he ran away. Also in Delhi is one thing, and then the other one was he said in German to somebody else. He said, "I wonder what kind of meditations they do." So I said, "Look, one thing is I do speak German. I'm from Switzerland, so it's better that you know before you say other things that you feel embarrassed about." And I said, "Look, I know many people who meditate who are not psychotic, and I know people who never meditated who are psychotic. So this has nothing to do with what we're doing." So it's like...
But yeah, they would.
Okay, once, also the German, once it was Easter when he ran away, so then nobody in the embassy because it's Easter. So I called the emergency number, and he said, "Oh, can you speak a bit louder? I'm sitting next to the swimming pool, I can't hear you." So there you go. You have to rely on ourselves,
Yeah.
This is it.
The
Good heart, and then if you know about emptiness, that's the best. It's just an illusion anyway, it's just like a dream. So if that is really firmly in your mind, not just here it's dangerous because then you go into nihilism, yeah. But here, everything I see is just produced by my own mind. Only my mind who sees it like that. That's a very good refuge. Then you relax. Impermanence, that things are changing, huh?
Have you had these states through meditation where you flip? Sort of.
You mean when I go crazy?
Yeah, in a way that you.
What?
Yeah, or I mean, I don't know.
Nothing was bad.
In a way, there is no separation between the object and you have it.
Not very often, but then also if you know what it is, then it's really helpful because then you see the power of the mind. But actually, it's enough just to understand that when I'm dreaming, I'm totally in the story. We don't need to go into empty stuff too quickly before we really understand what it's all about, because otherwise we really fall into nihilism. But it's much better to understand conventional reality, to see the power of the mind to produce a story and nothing is there, like in a dream. As long as we don't know that we're dreaming, we totally go along with it. So the word Buddha means awake, okay? So what we are thinking now that we are awake is kind of, compared to the Buddha, also just a dream produced by our own mind. So this is what we're trying to understand. Yeah.
Because when about the death meditation, when you think about it, what can you rely on, or where's your refuge? I go back into memory where I knew I experienced that, so I thought this is just a trust that this real. I mean, but I don't know if it's just memory is really tricky.
Yeah.
So I know. This is how it is. And we had the conversation about. She asked me, "Why do you still have problems? when you had that experience, why are you still worried about your job or this or that?
Yeah, because we're not used to that experience.
Yeah,
we're much more used to
we
this
need
concrete.
to do it so many times that we slowly get there.
Exactly. That's why it's very unfamiliar to the mind. That's why the mind gets frightened. You know, we're very, very convinced that there's a me and everything else outside here. We're convinced that this is real because it feels so real. When that starts to fall apart, it's very confusing. So instead of being able to go with it, it's the same when you wake up at night and you don't know who you are. This would be the perfect moment to meditate on that state. But we're so freaked because we need these reference points, and we mistake the reference points for reality. They're not real. They're just the mind who makes this reference point. So it's empathy, That's a reference point. But there are no real reference points. And with these reference points, we create some kind of prison around us. Or some of the Kirti Rinpoche says, like a coat that looks very nice, but it's too tight. And then comes the Dharma. And the Dharma, like acid, burns holes into this nice coat. And we don't like it. Because, look at my nice coat. Yeah.
You said
we're afraid of being free. We're like a bird who's been in a cage the whole time, and we had a chicken in Bodh Gaya. We used to go and buy the chickens that otherwise they eat them, and we would or sheep or goats or whatever, we would release them, and they're in the center. So this chicken was sitting at the what's it called, the hedge? No, the at the fence, which was like this, and just looking out with this in front. It was frightened to be inside where it was free. It needed that. So that's how we are.
You said, okay, in the night when I wake up confused, so I often have these states when I wake up during the night confused, what is happening, where am I? So you would suggest to meditate.
If you can. I cannot. I still cannot after all these years. I feel myself grasping at who am I, and then I remember where I went to school. And then for a short moment I calm down, and then I think, blew it again. The chance to meditate on emptiness. I cannot. So this is why, I don't trust my own mind alone at the time of death so much that it will know what to do. This is why my refuge is towards outside objects, where I think I have better access to. But that's just me, you see, so this is why that's a good thing. This is why I like Buddhism. Nothing is wrong, nothing is right. Two people say something that's opposite, but both of them are right or wrong. So it depends how you use it, and that's why Buddhism is called an experience vehicle. You have to experience it yourself. You have to see what works for you. And when I say experience or work, what does it mean when it works? When it works means you open up. Your fear goes, your self-centeredness goes, your confusion goes. That's when you see it works. When you can be a part of the universe instead of being an individual in the universe. Then you can see, when you feel the connection. When you yourself are not so important anymore. And happily, the happiness of somebody else is more important than yours. And that can be something very small, a seat in the bus. Doesn't have to be big things. This is how we start. We're not sitting down. Think somebody else can take the seat that I'm not taking. So there's also no pride, and when you get up and offer the seat to somebody else, there's no ego involved. Just don't sit down so somebody can sit when you know that the train will be full. Of course, if the train is empty, then that's ridiculous. So again, don't leave your wisdom at home, okay, when you become a spiritual practitioner. This is why you always figure out. There's so many answers to your one questions, because it depends on the situation. It really depends on the situation. That's why motivation, dedication at the end is very important. Motivation, where do I want to go? What is important for me? Dedication, all the energy that I practice now, or energy that I created now, may it go for the happiness of all. Just that, I don't have bodhicitta, but just the thought that it's possible to have love and compassion for all beings. I find this so inspiring. And you don't need to have diplomas, you don't need to look good, you don't need to be a man or a woman or Swiss or Asian or whatever. It's accessible to everybody. And what more noble can you think of than having the wish that everybody be well and free from suffering? What more noble can you have? Just a wish. I mean, for us, the wish is enough. And for me, maybe you are further, I don't know. But it's a difficult thing. I mean, don't underestimate. Yeah. Because you have to give up on things. Same way as with the environment, we want the environment to recover, it will become expensive. We have to pay the price here. We have to be prepared to pay the price. And not just, let the rich do it or something. So we have to see whether it's worthwhile to pay the price, I think so. Yeah. Okay, so go have a break, please. Otherwise we won't have time to die. It's okay, we're not in silence anymore because otherwise it becomes too heavy here, this whole thing.
Ja, kann ich für die Meditation abliegen?
Ja,
ich kann wirklich nicht mehr sitzen.
Auf alle Fälle. Hättest du ja vorher schon anblicken können?
Ja, ist gut, ich mache es jetzt.
Hast du das, habe ich das nicht gesagt, dass man kann auch anblicken, wenn es
Ich habe
eins
es auch
fest
erst jetzt gemerkt.
wenn es eins fest
Ich kann mich nicht mehr konzentrieren.
Ja.
Ist gut.
Ja, auf alle Fälle. If you want to lie down for the next meditation,
Yeah.
you can.
Yes.
The danger is that you fall asleep. Because this is what happens when we go to sleep. We do these things every night when we go into deep sleep.
Die.
Not dying. The gross mind absorbing into the more subtle mind. And then into the clear light. And then when dreaming comes out again.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How can I more aware of my ego? Because sometimes we behave a certain behavior not because of the situation, because whatever happened in the past, a long time ago.
Well, this is why, it's not just, again, if I could give you one answer to your question, that would be wonderful, but I can't. So this is why there's a whole path going from thinking about impermanence and death. Now first thinking about the good situation that we have the possibility to do something, thinking that this situation is not going to last because we're going to die, and then kind of thinking about actions, karma, then thinking about suffering, thinking about that, dissatisfaction in our own mind is actually with our confusion that we have is actually normal. We always think that being well is for us normal, but as long as we have this feeling of I, me here, it is not. That's what the Buddha says. That's why everything is in the nature of suffering. Everything turns sour for us. If you have to eat these chips for 24 hours, exactly, you will be sick.
Yes.
The suffering of change, something that is wow, really great, because me also, I love chips, is when we do it for too long, it turns sour. This is nature of our existence. So you can slowly, when you have. So when you feel your I, your ego, is usually when there is negative emotions there. Yeah, then it's very tight and very uncomfortable. So you can, with a lot of compassion for yourself, just understand, I am not these negative emotions. I have them, but this is not me. To allow them to be there, also to open up, and to, I don't know, a lot of compassion, just to think, okay, what do I need right now? What would be good for me? Because then you come out of the guilt of having it, the guilt of not being good, the guilt of this and that and that. You come out and you go into compassionate mode, with a very a benevolent mind, looking at that suffering mind. Yeah.
Do the
and then always, may I be well, may I be happy. May I be protected from physical mental harm. May I be able to understand this ego mind that creates all the suffering, whatever. It's okay to make your own words with this, to wish yourself well, to understand what with this confused mind. That's why we suffer, and because we suffer, we make others suffer.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's the root cause for all the...
Exactly. It's, you know, if somebody is nasty and aggressive, it's not because they're happy, it's because they're not happy.
Exactly.
So this is why we have a duty to be happy. Happy, and then we have to know what is happiness. So happiness is to have less negative mind states. We don't need more happiness, we need less suffering. And then it comes. And not to be so judging. This is so important, you know. To start to feel the pain, how it feels when the negative states are there. Not to be afraid of that pain, because once we start to see the pain, it can heal. It really can. And also you're not the only one, you know, with this ego mind. We all have it, that's why we're all here. Yeah.
But I find like...
And not to push.
I want to direct to the way of awareness enough, like, okay, nothing wrong with that person, nothing wrong with the situation. Hey, it's just that awareness helps. But sometimes like I can manage that, but sometimes it blow, like emotions swallow everything.
No, don't swallow them.
I don't know how to do when emotions so strong.
I think because you go a bit too far when you say there's nothing wrong with the person, there's nothing wrong with the situation. No, there's nothing wrong with the person, but there's something wrong with the situation. Okay? You know, don't go like too much. This is why I said don't go too quickly into emptiness. Everything is just an illusion and blah, 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 and this and that. If you see that somebody's doing wrong to you or to others, it's okay to say that action is wrong, because otherwise your ego starts to rebel and say, hey, what are you saying? He's hurting somebody else and you're saying it's okay? To say, no, the action is wrong. And then we kind of come back to this, me, myself, may I never do that. Because that already calms us down a little bit. By saying the action is wrong, the person has the possibility to be kind, but at the moment the person doesn't show any kindness. But not to the same way as we don't confuse our mind states with, we don't identify with the mind states, the same way we don't freeze a person into their mind states. And then difficult, you know, you send them love, compassion, and think, may you be happy, may you be well. Then the ego goes like, what? Are you crazy? It's like, no way. Yeah, and then you calm the ego down. Say, if this guy is happy, he'd be a better person. Yeah, it's a bit like that.
But I feel like sometimes my emotions so strong, it swallow every teaching, every practice, everything gone.
Mine too.
I don't know how to understand. You feel that way, okay, slowly. I don't know how to slowly get out the emotions, because when that coming, it's swallowing destruction force. I don't know the way to.
Yeah, you see, well, again, it's the way we think and the way we behave is a bit like this. Yeah?
Yes.
But every time you see it, it makes the gap between behavior and thinking a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller. So just to see that you're being overwhelmed by your emotions, that lessens their power over you. So it's enough to see, actually, because you're not creating more seeds. You see, there's a few people who their behavior and their attitudes are like this.
Yes.
So these are the Buddhas, but those are also the very, very aggressive people who think that what they're doing is right. So those are in a bad state because they don't see, and they're creating more and more causes for their suffering. So we're neither the Buddhas nor the ones who think it's okay to harm that person, it's okay to have negative emotions, it's part of me, blah, blah. So, but we're here, so for us, seeing is enough.
So accept that state slowly. Accept that state.
Accept that state. And awareness is good, just to see it and then allow it, open up, you know.
May I never do it.
Open it's you know the rain method. It's like recognize. If you recognize and say, oh, coming again, or it's here again, already you made a step out of it a little bit only. So you see, you're not inside it. It still turns here, but you're here.
Yeah.
So being here is great.
Okay.
Because it will turn, as long as it has this karmic energy to turn, it will turn. If I stir water, even I take the spoon out, it will, because of the energy that I put into it, it will still kind of continue to go around. So by not feeding into it, by not saying, he's bad, blah, 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 I take the spoon out. But it's by being aware of what's going on, by taking the mind away from the object, I usually say, you know. And you go inside, say, okay, wave is here. How does it feel? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it, you know, like you go into the wave. So it's like recognize it, allow it to be there, make space. Because it's the same as with wind. The more you compress it, the stronger it becomes. Then I is like investigate. And not investigate how did he do, what did he do. No, let go. But like, how do I feel? How do I feel with this? Investigate how? What's going on? What do I need? Where does it hurt? This one, sometimes people say, oh, I can't connect with my body. So then we sit down, do a reflection, and with that question, okay, where does it hurt? Because then automatically you come from here down to here. Not why does it hurt? Where does it hurt? What do I need? What would be good for me right now? Because then it's the compassion coming up, and the N is the non-identification with the emotion.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and please, don't put yourself under pressure and judge yourself. This is the worst, because then you give these things a lot of strength.
Because I'm a mother, sometimes I feel guilty so much. It's like to my son, but at the child, it's always impulsive at the child. That's the characteristic of a child.
So don't forget to tell him once the wave is gone, oh, I really love you. And sometimes even say sorry, and to make sure that he understands that you love him. And to maybe, do all kinds of things you can tell your kids. How wonderful that you came into my life, for example, so that he feels secure. But not to be too, if you need to stop them doing stupid things, then it's okay to use firmness. As long as you don't wait too long, because then when it's mixed with anger, then they get frightened, and then they don't listen anymore, because
I have that tendency, maybe too long, and
Yeah.
emotion involved with that. Thank you.
I warn him, at one point I warned the kid, I said, look, if you don't stop now, I'll get angry, and then I can't guarantee for anything. So then he stopped. Because he could feel I was saying that for him, because I was concerned about him. I wasn't concerned about me with the anger. Yeah? Yes.
We're going to do the dissolution
Now, yes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I often, with a mirage, there's colors, right? But do we also
Colors?
visualize?
No, there's no colors.
Isn't that 5?
You know what the mirage is? Have you ever been in the desert?
No.
Okay.
Not really, yeah. No.
A mirage is when you drive in the desert on a straight road, and you look, and then it's a bit flimmering here, and you think it's water.
Yeah.
That's a mirage.
Right, but how about, do we need to visualize the temperature? Okay, because that's what I always got stuck.
No, just,
It's a more of a visual thing than sensation.
because it's kind of logical, because like earth absorbs into water, so water becomes more strong, so you see water on earth. Then water absorbs into fire, so you see smoke. It's like pouring water into fire.
Now, when we do visualize smoke, do we need to visualize sensation?
No. Whatever comes. No, not really. It's just that you make your mind familiar with what could appear, so that you're not freaking out.
Okay.
And then whatever appears.
So it's no real, because we don't remember. I mean, I always got stuck with the sensation. Like
No,
how I
no
should
sensation.
feel in my
No
body.
sensation. You feed your brain what's going on.
Yeah, that's no
Then
problem.
that's it.
Okay, so now don't go further, like feeling the heat in the body or weight and all that.
And we usually mention these signs because then when you are with a dying person, then you know what's going on. Okay. Nice, if you can make your death moment so comfortable with like the favorite cup of tea in front of you, and, don't be sorry if you can't finish it. That's another good exercise. Every time we make ourselves a cup of tea, we're convinced that we will finish drinking it. Totally wrong.
That we will?
Yeah, we're convinced that we will finish drinking it.
Right.
But maybe we're not. Maybe we can't. Maybe we die before it's finished. Every time we make a plan, we think that, I'll finish and then then I die. It's not like that. We can't say this. Oh no, wait a little bit. I haven't finished my tea yet. Yeah, so.
We had mate and we couldn't finish mate.
Yeah.
We had it in the morning and we couldn't finish because we needed to go to the drain.
Okay.
So that was a hard exercise.
Yeah. But you're coming back to your mate tea, so no, it's just this. What I'm saying, it's just this false certainty that we think we can finish the cup of tea, or like the false certainty that we're going to arrive home tonight. Yeah, we have this certainty, which is not realistic. So because we have this unrealistic certainty, when we get home tonight, we're not even happy because we think it's normal. If we're not getting home tonight, we're unhappy because we think it's not normal not to get home because we have this expectation. Yeah. So when you realize, actually, getting home tonight will be a great thing, you get home, you're happy. If you don't get home, you're not too upset because you took into consideration that you wouldn't get home. Yeah, usually we don't put the feet towards the Buddhist.
Lying down, this meditation?
Yeah, it's okay. So if you lie in a way that you are close to each other, if one of you starts to snore, which is like very common, the other one who is next to them just quickly, briefly wakes them up. Because every night when we go to sleep, we go through the same things.
But is it like we all need to lie down?
No, you don't need to. If you can sit, it's better because there's less chance to fall asleep. If you're not too painful by sitting, it's important that you're comfortable. Because very often people fall asleep when they lie down.
Are we practicing what though now?
The
conscious death?
Well, the conscious death, just we're not dying, just what happens to the mind at the time of death. Is okay? So, because these are, but we're going through these things every night, we're just not conscious. But in case you're still kind of conscious at the time of death, that you know that this is normal when you go to sleep or when you are going to die, because the gross mind, who is connected with the senses, it goes into a more subtle mind, where then the mind makes a story without needing the senses anymore, like in dreaming. Okay? So like this. And then we have certain appearances, so I'll describe these appearances, and you actually, you will have received the chart of it. There's a whole description. There's a chart which you have received with the email, so you can look at it again.
But those elements that you will describe, you say you could theoretically also perceive them while you go to sleep every night. So this happens as well, no?
The falling we perceive when we wake up again. It's not so conscious. Also, once the breath has stopped, then there's only the inner breath left. So there's no more thoughts, like the brain is finished, shut down. So we don't really, you see that the unconscious mind has experiences, but you can't remember it. This is the thing. Because there's no dualistic I having an experience. Okay? So also, like I asked a Lama the other day about, at the time of death, how about painkillers? And, when he said, well, once you are going through this process, once you stop breathing, your subtle mind's absolutely not affected by these things. It's okay.
Because there's no body anymore. Because there's no body anymore.
Yeah, exactly, because the body has lost its functions. Yeah, so it's not that we are going onto the clear light knowing who I am and what I am. It's absolutely not like that. We're just training anyway, so that, especially with the falling, that we're not freaking out. Or when you're with somebody who's dying, because that happens quite often when they go, I'm falling. The moment you can tell them, really honestly, it's normal and next one will be this, they calm down. No matter what happens, when you tell somebody it's normal, funny enough, they calm down. So, okay, let's try.
Try not to cough.
Yes, okay. These are quite good. I have one of those also. Is it essential oils or something?
Yeah, it's for allergy.
Yeah. Okay. So don't forget, it's just a training. You don't need to do anything specific or particular. You just need to listen, and if you can visualize these whatever appears, then okay. If not, it's also okay. Main thing is that you hear it. Okay. So relax. Connect with the body. Take a few deep breaths. And maybe even for a short while think, if this would be my real moment of death, what is it that I would have to regret? So of course, if you have small children, this is very, very difficult. Because that's the worst for a parent, when you have to die young, when you have small children. This is one of the most difficult things, I think. But it can happen. So our body is made up of five elements, because in that tradition one counts space also as an element. So when these elements work well together, then they support each other. Like earth is solidity, the water element is for moistening, the heat element or the fire element is for digestion, and then the wind element allows movement, and of course is the breath. So somehow at the time of death they don't perform their function anymore, or they lose their power, as it is said. And then we have certain body experiences and inner visions, as it is called. Also, these 5 elements are each one connected to a sense. So while they absorb, also the capacity of this sense of seeing, smelling, hearing, touching, and tasting disappears. Kind of the mind slowly becomes more and more subtle and disengages from the body. Also, don't be so afraid of death, because the body starts to shut down at one point. It doesn't need food and drink anymore. And when that happens, it releases a lot of these oxytocins, a lot of happiness hormones. So that's why if you cannot die on a machine that makes you kind of digest and feed and breathe, if you can die just naturally, you don't have to worry so much about having an unpeaceful death. Nature takes care of itself almost by releasing these hormones that make us happy and relaxed. Endorphins, oxytocins. Okay, so the first element that loses its power is the earth element. And in the body you have a feeling as if it becomes very thin. And you lose the power over your limbs, meaning you can't move them anymore. If you want to sit up or lie down, somebody would have to help you. You couldn't do this at this moment. Another sign that the death process has started is that you can neither close your eyes or you cannot open them. And if your eyes are open, the sight becomes very unclear and blurry. And because the earth element here starts to absorb into the water element, which is the next element, you have an inner vision like seeing water on the earth, or like a mirage when you're driving on a hot road in the summer, especially in the desert. It looks as if there's water in the distance, but there is no water. It's a fata morgana, it's a mirage. And you could have this feeling of falling, like the earth not supporting you anymore. And that can be frightening. So you can already know now, even though you have a feeling of falling, you're not going to crash anywhere. Because there's no ground to crash. Just the earth element not losing its solidity. So the next element that loses its power is the water element, slowly then absorbing into the fire element. Your body liquids would slowly start to dry up, like your saliva, your tears, your blood, your urine. Body becomes very brittle, very dry. And this is the aggregate of feelings, if you know these 5 aggregates. So that means if you would have had pleasant experiences or feelings from lying on a soft bed, or unpleasant ones from having pain, at this point, these feelings that have to do with the body, like pleasant or unpleasant, they disappear. You don't experience them anymore as pleasant or unpleasant. So again, it's okay. Your hearing goes. You might have some inner sounds, but the outer sounds become very distant, very unclear again. Same as when we go to sleep. Yeah? Maybe the TV is still on, but you fall asleep. Your ability to hear the sound disappears slowly. And your inner vision or your inner appearance is like smoke. Because when you have fire and water coming together, it produces smoke. The water element absorbing into the fire element. So the next element that absorbs is the fire element. So slowly your body heat would retract towards the heart, meaning your limbs become very cold. You cannot digest food or drink anymore because there's not enough body heat. It's the aggregate of discrimination that loses its power, meaning seeing differences, so you're not really aware of what's going on outside. Maybe you know that some people are standing around you, but you don't know who they are, what they're doing here. So also the mind starts to disengage from the outside world. Then at this point your inhalation becomes very weak and very labored, and your exhalation strong and lengthy. So it will be very difficult to breathe in, so sometimes dying people make this kind of sound. Don't worry, they don't feel any discomfort. It's because then the air element, the wind element also then, after this one, dissolves. And you have an inner vision like sparks or fireflies within the smoke. Then the next element that absorbs is the wind element. So here your breathing would stop. You would be declared clinically dead, probably, because you don't breathe anymore. You cannot perform physical actions anymore. You lose the ability to taste and to have like body experiences of soft or hard. And you have an inner vision of a very big dark room that is lit by a very small light, which could be from a flickering candle just about to go out. So at this point, your gross consciousness also has lost its power. You're not mindful of outer affairs anymore. You don't have any more thoughts that have to do with the outside world. But you're not dead yet. You are clinically dead, but then now, as they say, you would have your inner breath still there, meaning the energies in the meridians are still there, or the chi or the prana or whatever you want to call it. So slowly they kind of start to retract towards the central channel, which goes down in front of your spine. And so first, these energy winds enter the central channel at the top of our head and slowly move downwards. And you would have, like all concepts have kind of stopped. So your mind would be aware, but no separation from what it experiences. So you would have an inner vision of white light, like a very clear vacuity just filled with white light, but not a direct light source, like light reflecting on the snow, like on a full moon's night. Then these energy winds from below the heart, they gather towards the central channel. Enter the central channel at the base of your spine. Slowly move upwards towards the heart chakra. And you would have an inner vision of a very clear vacuity filled with copper red light, like the sky, the totally clear sky, without horizon, just the sky at sunset sometimes. Then when these two winds meet in the center of the central channel, in the middle of the central channel, in the heart chakra, they lock together for a little while and you get what is called the tunnel vision, like a very clear vacuity filled with utter darkness. And this is where all these energy winds start to dissolve into what is called the indestructible drop at the heart. So when that dark vision finishes, then it is the clear light of death. This is when the mind is at its most subtle level, and what you see is just a very clear vacuity, just filled with light, like the sky just before the sun comes up on a very fresh, clear kind of autumn day in the mountains. But again, no horizon, but no beginning, no end, just luminous space. Boundless, without any hindrance. Just clear space. It's the nature of the mind, called the clear light of death. So then it is at this point that the subtle mind, the very subtle mind riding on a very subtle wind, would leave the body and then go into an intermediate state. And then according to what karmic imprint has been kind of activated at the beginning of this process, finds a new body and continues in that new body. So the mind is different. It's not the same mind, it's just a continuity. That's the same continuity, but it's not the same mind. But we're not going to go there, as I said. So in order to come back into the body again, one goes backwards. So from this totally boundless clear light, you visualize the black vision, like the utter darkness. From that utter darkness, you visualize the red appearance. From the red appearance, you visualize the white appearance. From there, you visualize this very dark space just lit by an unstable candlelight. From there, you visualize the sparks within the smoke. From there, you visualize the smoke. And from the smoke, you visualize the mirage. And then you really connect with your body. You feel how it is lying on the ground or sitting on the cushion. You take a few deep breaths, feeling the air coming in, going out. Start to move your hands and your toes. And before you totally enter meditation, you know who you are and where you are. So if you feel a bit spaced out, that's fine, that's okay, enjoy it. Because we just unburdened ourselves of everything that makes us suffer, which is these 5 contaminated aggregates. And as I said, every time we go to sleep, then we go through these absorptions. Every time we faint also, so maybe people who have fainted, they especially remember the sparks. Yeah, also like, the feet getting very soft and there's no solidity anymore, then the hearing goes, yeah, and then the sparks come, and usually I never got any further than that, but this I remember, because when I was 20 I used to faint just like that. And I really liked it, because then I plunged, I never injured myself. And but then when I came back, I think I really came back from that clear light. So I felt very spacious when I came. I felt very soft. I felt very open. But then you see the faces around you and lying in the yeah. So orgasm also, you go through these stages very quickly, especially the opening of all the energy channels. This is why you don't. There's no somebody having an orgasm, you become the orgasm. So maybe if you have a partner, maybe check next time. And then also the energy channels remain a little bit open. So for a while you are ready to die for this person, because you feel totally united, not just with him or with her or whatever, but with everybody, like you're totally okay. The only thing is then it closes up again, and then he turns over and starts snoring, and then instead of thinking, oh, how wonderful, he sleeps so tight, you go like, I want to sleep. Then the ego comes back in. I want to sleep as well, isn't it? I mean, I remember these moments. I only became a nun when I was 40. So I'm happy that I had these experiences, because I can relate to it out of experience, not just from hearsay. The Dalai Lama, unfortunately, he can't. When he gets asked these kind of questions, he said, look, sorry, I'm a monk, since I'm young, I don't know. So don't ask him these kind of couple and children's questions. How was it?
Good.
Yeah, okay.
Somehow I didn't want to go back.
Yeah.
It was so good there.
Yeah, exactly. So, because it is very pleasant, and people who have had near-death experiences, they do say that they understood something, but now they can't remember what it is, because it's not conceptual. Yeah, but I did feel, as you say, that it felt really good, and they didn't want to come back, and especially because near-death experience means you have a lot of pain in the body, because it's usually accidents when it happens suddenly. So because the connection to the body goes, so then it's like, totally free. And then you have to come back into this body which is injured. And it's interesting to listen to these people, what they say. Also how the power of the mind, because somebody was locked into an avalanche and had just about every possible bone broken, that when she said when she gave up hope that somebody would find her, the pain disappeared somehow. And also she was able to, she said it was as if they were there. She was able with her mind to invite everybody that she wanted to say goodbye into that into that space to say what she had to say. And she said it was totally as if they were there. And she felt so good. And then they found her. And then she said it was really, really bad, like the pain in the body, because, you know, having come from a totally painless state to such a state is like, wow. And she's like, I think she's 20% now, she can move. But she says, you know, now I really enjoy every moment of my life, even though I can hardly move, but I really enjoy every moment of my life, and I don't feel guilty for being happy as I used to do before. Nice. It was, I heard it on Swiss radio 5, 6, 7 years ago. Somebody giving that report about being locked into an avalanche. Per coincidence, I turned on the radio. I listen to the radio quite a bit. I turned on the radio, and that's the report. And there's other reports like this, you know, which is quite amazing. Some people, there's many things that can happen. Yeah, some people say, oh, I got a message, it's not time to die, you have to go back, and things like that. Yeah, and then, of course, in the intermediate state, you have in the Tibetan tradition, you have all the things that appear once you are in the intermediate state before you get reborn. So that's another big story. Will everybody have these Buddhas appear? I don't know. You know, some people say Jesus appears to them. I think it's cultural. Whatever your mind is familiar with, well, this is what appears. Yeah, some people say they had horrible visions. Not every near-death experience, by the way, is peaceful. Some people say it was really horrible. Quite not many, but a few. So we don't know. The only thing we know, there's no guarantee for anything.
From the, what is the first one? Water absorption? The first one, or wind absorption?
The earth absorbs first, yeah.
From the earth absorption to, let's say, the totally clear light. Is there an estimate? You can say, okay, this will take 5 seconds, 1 second, or probably 5 minutes.
It can last up to 3 days. And if you're experienced, you can see where the person is, because there's some outer appearances also when you are with a person.
And what is the usual case?
There's no
is
usual case.
3 days or 1 day?
It depends very much in what state the body is. If it's very sick, it goes quite faster. If the body is okay, just old age, then it's slower. If there's an accident, it can go like a few seconds and go by. So it depends.
And these elements, they add on top. So you would see first then the smoke additionally comes up, or it goes from...
Okay, in most of they say, like, most of the cases is like that, but it can be different. So don't get confused, you know, when you, she told me a wrong thing, when you have the sparks before the smoke or something like that. It can be different. So again, there's no guarantee. And so that we can do this really consciously, I mean, for that you need to be really, really realized. I mean, you know, when you do Tantra, you practice this 6 times a day, these absorptions, yeah? To go into the empty state. And then out of that empty state, you rise as the deity. Yeah, you have the Tantra module now, I think, isn't it? In Tuesdays. So then, this is where you train, because when you are in the clear light, and you're able to recognize this as not conceptually, not I am in the clear light, but if your mind is so trained that your mind becomes the clear light and the bliss and the emptiness of the whole thing, but that becomes one. This is your chance out of samsara. You're not being reborn under the control of negative emotions, especially this ego I mind who wants to exist. If you are reborn, you're going to be reborn out of compassion. I want to be of benefit to others. Yeah, and then you can choose, you know, because also people say, can I choose when I'm reborn? So I think it's Thielman who said in a very good way, he said, yeah, you have a choice. But the choice is about like a person who hasn't eaten for 3 months, and you come into a supermarket. Will you choose what you're going to eat? Or will you take the first thing that is lying there? Will you choose? Probably not. Just look, when you're very hungry and you open your fridge, doesn't matter. You know, this is what I said. Whatever you give me for lunch is delicious because I don't eat breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. So lunch is always my first meal. So I'm hungry. So everything is good enough. Everything is really good. Yeah. We have become so choosy, and the food has to be so special because one thing is our mind is not happy. So it seeks happiness in the food, which is not there, I tell you. And the other thing we don't really enjoy because we're not hungry enough. Yeah, so allow yourself to go hungry. Then you don't need to be such special food. And I think the more you find inner peace and inner happiness through meditation and through practice, the less you need these things outside. It's not that you lose interest. It's not that your life becomes boring. If something is there which is very good, you enjoy it, but that's it. You're not looking for it. If it comes, fine. If it doesn't come, no big deal. You become a boring person. But a happy person. You know, when somebody asks you, how are you? And you say, I'm well, that's it, conversation finished. Yeah. What are you going to talk about?
When you die in a hospital, usually they take the body away very quickly. So is it a good idea to ask to be left alone for 3 days?
Well, it doesn't have to be 3 days. You know, you can see when the mind leaves the body, you can see it in the eyes. So it's a good idea to ask them to leave the eyes open, because when they start to get opaque, then you know the mind is gone.
Okay.
Because then it starts to decay, and this is what they don't want. And also, it's not fair, really, because I've seen a body that decays. It starts to ooze out liquids. It smells really bad. It kind of blows up. It's not nice.
So that's a sign that the mind is not there.
That the mind is gone.
The eyes get it.
Sometimes there's a red drop coming from the nose and a white drop coming from the sexual organ.
So the top is red, white is below.
The red drop is blood?
Huh?
Blood? The red drop.
Yeah, it is. I've seen it in an animal, actually. After 3 days we thought that the animal is dead, but we left it because we did Medicine Buddha retreat. So I said, oh, the mind is still there. And it didn't decay. It was a hedgehog. And then on the 3rd day, I took it off because it was sitting in a kind of box. Instead, it starts oozing. And then it had this kind of tissue over the head because of the flies, because it was in New Zealand and the maggots. And then this red drop appearing, totally red like this, not murky like the liquid that comes out of dead bodies, but totally red like this. And I thought, wow, this is amazing.
Just a drop? Or?
Yeah, it was just a drop. And because there was a white tissue, it kind of expanded a bit. So also animals go through this.
The mind goes when the eyes are big. So
yeah, then the mind is also the subtle mind. Then it goes. But even if they dispose of the body before, even they cut the body apart before, you don't feel anything. You do not feel anything, because the mind is not connected to the body anymore.
Okay.
That's why, for example, when my granny died and maybe her mind was not gone, it's like, a friend of mine, she saw her energy body in the flat. So the body was not there, but somehow she saw it. That could be the...
Not necessarily, because also the mind, because it's very attached to the body, and sometimes a dead person doesn't know that the person is dead, by the way. They kind of hover around the body and they don't understand why they can't go back in. So that's also a possibility. There's many possibilities there. Yeah.
I have a question. Is there still mental activity, and is this tukdam in Tibetan?
Yeah, tukdam is mental activity. No, it's just being in the clear light, knowing that's the clear light, but not with the separation. I know that this is the clear light. Making the mind familiar with that clear light. They say when the mother clear light, which is our natural clear light that we all have, which is covered with delusions and confusion at the moment. So when the mother clear light meets the child clear light is the one that you meditate upon. When these two come together, then it's tukdam, it's called final meditation, and some of the masters, they can stay there for days without decaying, sitting, sometimes lying down. And there is, I told you, did anybody check it out?
Yeah.
In the new,
there was the video.
it was still there?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have
Okay, so you can, there was New Zealand TV who kind of went to film a master who had died and who was like 14 days or something in tukdam. Without, the hair was still there, the skin didn't come off, didn't decay. Actually, they give off, sometimes they give off quite a nice smell, a good smell instead of the decaying smell. But many things can happen to this because, it takes a while for the mind to go, and this is why also you have this, I think I sent it, maybe in German. No, instructions for the Bardo beings, I think we have it in English, or the Bardo prayer.
Yes.
I have it in German, I'm not sure if I have it in English. There's a certain Bardo, there's many Bardo prayers that you do, but the shorter ones, you give instruction to somebody who has died. If you have a good connection with their mind. So you tell them, look, now you have died. These and these are the sign. The sign that the earth is not supporting you anymore. It means, boom, you're dead. Huh?
English.
Yeah, so it's good if you read it also, and because that also makes, you read it for somebody who has died, but at the same time it makes you familiar with the process. And you tell them not to be afraid. You tell them that even though maybe they are on the way to some not fortunate rebirth, you can still reverse it if you remember your refuge. And if you have a good connection with the master, they can kind of hook you there. But if you don't have the ring, which is your devotion, and you knowing the practice, they cannot hook you because the hook kind of slips off. Yeah. I find this fascinating, Who knows if it's true or not? I have no idea, but it's fascinating.
What else?
What else? Exactly. What else can we do? And more also science, they say like, even though the people are clinically dead, but then there seems to be, they said like a tsunami that goes through the brain, like a huge, so it might be this clear light, who goes through the brain and then everything shuts down. Only then, even though they're not on machines and clinically dead, but still, after that moment, there's still, you can feel, you can measure in the brain like a huge wave, and then it's finished. But don't worry, you will not be, even the mind is still in the body, the subtle mind is, you put in a coffin, you put in the earth, you will not feel it. Don't worry, nobody can bury you alive. I mean, unless you're not dead.
But it's
to let
your mind go.
Huh?
It's good to let your mind go, like.
Yeah, exactly. Also, so the more we know about this, the more we work with it, the more normal it becomes, and the less it will be terrible when we have to die. Okay. Okay. Now you're very welcome. So you can help each other. One leads and the other one meditates. If you are in a couple and both of you are doing this, for example, you got the chart here by email, or you can make a recording, and then you lie down, you listen to it. And if you have problems going to sleep, I tell you, visualize these appearances. It doesn't take long, and you fall asleep when you are first relaxed, and then you visualize these appearances, and whoosh, you go.
Which appearances? The fire,
the mirage, then the smoke, then the fireflies, and it's very good. It's a very good way of going to sleep, and go to sleep with the good, with the good motivation. Also, I go to sleep so I'm rested tomorrow, that I'll be of benefit to others instead of harming them. Now, big question, do you have like maybe 10 more minutes? We can do short Tonglen meditation, because that's the best thing. If you can do Tonglen at the time of death, wow, this is your ticket for good rebirth. Okay, but don't now, start doing Tonglen and then go like this. Because, you see, I was saying that at one point in Bodhgaya to a class of American teenagers of 18 years old. And then I had already gone back to Dharamsala, but there was many strange circumstances, but somebody fell off the roof and died. And we don't know if she jumped or if she fell, because at that time, there was no board. There was just, the roof was straight and then a bit like this, and it's only like 2 stories, so but we still don't know, because afterwards I read her journal, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure that she thought like, because I say, if you can take refuge at the time of death, you have a good chance of having a good rebirth. So the last sentence was, I wonder if I will take refuge. So I don't know if she meant like, better die now, take refuge, have a good rebirth, but she already had a good rebirth. So it's like, don't end your life before it's time. I mean, exit is another thing here, but like suicide in a very bad way, because it's so difficult for the people that you leave behind. And it's not solving any problems. You take them with you. But I know how it feels if one wants to commit suicide, because I was also at one point in my life long ago, and I know how it feels. You're just fed up and you just want to finish the whole thing. It's just everything's too heavy and it's too difficult. And but the thought of my father prevented me from doing this, because I can't do this to him. I would have loved to fall down the steps, break my neck, and then it's an accident. It's sad, but that's it. But I couldn't commit suicide. Also, maybe I was too chicken, I don't know. But I would have loved to die at that moment. Really, it was too difficult, the whole thing. Life. Now I'm happy I didn't, of course. Yeah, but I think everybody has been thinking about this. Everybody has been at that point where they what is this all about? Okay, so to finish, we do a short giving and taking meditation. So again, if you can sit on the cushion, fine. If not, to sit on the bench is fine. Make yourselves comfortable with a very happy feeling that we had this opportunity to spend that day together, talking about these really important things. Because as we all discovered, death is inevitable. And if we prepare for this, if we lead a good life with a good heart, some wisdom of knowing about, cause and effect, about karma, some wisdom knowing about how to develop compassion, some wisdom about also knowing that not everything that seems to be real is real, I think we don't have to be afraid of dying. We have a source of refuge. So try to develop that warm feeling good about yourself. Having done that, having interest in that, it's not so obvious. Being ready to bear the pain of thinking about death already now. You need courage to do these things. So you being here shows that you have that courage. So developing these good feelings about ourselves and connecting with them is really important, but as you might know, we develop them 2 seconds later, they're already gone. Then again, we have to think these thoughts in order for them to come back. The nervousness, the tightness in the chest, the anxiety, feeling uncomfortable is always there. And it seems to be taking over, covering those good feelings. But remember the good feeling from before and visualize it as a source of light in the middle of your chest, in your heart chakra. It's your nature, it's your goodness, your spaciousness, your basic wisdom that we all have. And as we know, light is much stronger than darkness. The moment you switch on the light, the darkness goes, no matter how long the darkness was there. And the darkness doesn't go anywhere, it just disappears. So you can think of all your things that, first for yourself, that bother you. Everything that seems heavy, difficult, dark, sticky, unwanted. You see it in the form of black smoke, or just darkness, or hotness, or stickiness. And then come back to that spot of light in your heart. And as you breathe in, you imagine that you're breathing in all that darkness, all the heaviness, all the sickness, all the stickiness, all the unhealthiness. And it dissolves into that light spot. It doesn't go anywhere, it just dissolves. As you breathe out, you see that light source is expanding, slowly, slowly filling your body. And you try to feel the vibrancy, the being alive of that light, the love, the compassion, the wisdom, slowly spreading in your body with each out breath, getting bigger, getting stronger, getting brighter. With each in-breath, all the heaviness, all the difficulties, whatever form you want to give it. You can give it like the form of an animate being, fantasy being, a comic, a substance, a color, an energy. It sucks it in like a vacuum cleaner. It totally dissolves it because it doesn't exist really from its own side. And breathing out slowly, slowly, you dissolve all the solidity in your body and your body becomes a body of light. And you just keep doing that. And you're very careful that you suck in all of the darkness, not just the big stuff. You go around in the body and you look for the shadows. For things that we block, for the blockages, for the denial, for the fear of seeing something unwanted. You breathe it in. It dissolves. As you breathe out, then the light becomes more vibrant, more radiant, filling your body. And you can accompany your breath with thoughts like, for example, when you breathe in, I'm open to whatever wants to come. Because when I'm open, it's not narrow and everything has space. There is space for everything because everything can be transformed by this natural love, compassion and wisdom that I have. As you breathe out, now slowly, slowly, the thought, May I be happy, may I be well. And that light represents that happiness, that wellness. May I be protected from physical and mental harm. As you breathe in, I'm open to whatever wants to come, be it fear, anger, confusion. As you breathe out, may I be strong, healthy, and peaceful. As you breathe in, may I be free from fear, anxiety, confusion. As you breathe out, may I have a totally open heart and live my life with joy and ease. Okay, so then in connection to dying, we can start training what we can think when we die, because Tonglen you can then do for friends, for family, for people you don't know, for people you don't like, but let's do it like how you would do it at the time of death. So again, we become familiar with the fact nobody dies, it's just the body that dies, and I'm not my body. You can think that many other people at that moment also die. They might be confused, frightened, sorry about things that they have done, not knowing where their refuge is. So I think, may my suffering of death become the cause for their happiness. And you breathe in their suffering, their confusion, their anxiety. Don't force yourself if you can't do it, but if you can, because you have it anyway. You breathe it in with the thought, I'm open to whatever wants to come. I know how to transform it. Your bright, radiant Buddha nature sucks it in. Totally let it disappear. When you breathe out, you give them every happiness that you have, every wisdom that you have, every comfort, courage, trust, confidence. As you keep breathing, you can start making dedications. For example, one is in all my lives. May I never be separated from the magnificent Dharma. May I meet with perfect teachers and quickly attain the state of, traditionally you say Vajradhara, but it can be the state of a fully awakened being. Then the mind knows which direction to go. May I never be separated from this magnificent path. Meet the perfect teachers. be able to continue to practice until full awakening. In all my lives, may I be able to live a meaningful life. May I not harm others, but may whoever hears, sees, thinks about me or touches me, may it only be of benefit to them. May the ocean of suffering in samsara quickly be exhausted, thanks to my practice. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I wish you a very good life and a peaceful death, because then we meet again, and either in this life or in another life, who knows, we don't know. But anyway, thank you very much. I mean, there's much more things to discuss and to say, and more, like at the moment in the French part of Switzerland, we're doing, we have 4 days, but they're separate, like 4 days with 2 weeks in between, about jusqu'au bout de la vie, like until the end of life. So it's more about how to accompany dying people. So it's somebody who's working for palliative and somebody who's a palliative nurse, and me, kind of what kind of rituals to do when somebody has Buddhist rituals to do when somebody has died. So it's very inspiring because everybody opens up and we all discuss, and there's a lot of sharing, and there's a lot of happiness, although it's a difficult topic. Yeah, so I think it's very good. It's very good to do these things, and it's not only Buddhists who do that. The Protestant Church has a very good program also, which is called Letzte Hilfe.